What's up, everyone? Welcome back to a Liquid FX YouTube video. Here we're going to be going over the second, I guess, most popular crypto market, and that's Ethereum or ETHUSD, right? So here we start on the monthly time frame, right? So I'm just going to label that so everyone understands right off the bat. We're on the monthly time frame over here, right? Now, why do I start on the monthly time frame? Right? So I don't often look at Ethereum. I don't trade crypto. I'm more indices and forex. So what's the main motivation for me looking at the monthly on ETHUSD is to understand where the market could head longer term. So let's have a look. Let's dive on the monthly time frame. Now, the first thing you need to look at is this piece of price action over here. So what we see is we saw a bullish imbalance over here, right? So we see a bullish fair value gap over here that gets respected pretty accurately with this wick over here. So this wick over here indicates a fill in the fair value gap, right? So we understand that price is likely to head higher, which it did. Okay, so now what we've seen is we saw an all-time high for back in 2018, January 2018, so about 6 years ago. We've seen this all-time high get broken, right? Just like this. So already, from an analysis perspective, we need to understand that when we see an all-time high get broken, and we see bullish fair value gaps being respected, we're in a bullish market, right? Let's have a look here. Let's have a look at most recent price action. I say recent, we have to go back to November 2021. So here we have an all-time high on the ETH USD, right? So this is our all-time high from November of 2021. Now, let's see what price action has given us. So we need to understand quickly how price action works from the standpoint of structural highs and lows. We understand that once we have a high's job is to make a low, and a low's job is to break the previous high. So now we're at a position where we understand we've made an all-time high and we've had somewhat of a correction. But now, as we can see, price has not even filled a fair value gap and is continuing higher already. So this represents, so right now we're at this sort of stage. So the next thing you want to look at from an analytical perspective, as an analyst, is the fact that this high up here, which happens to be the all-time high, is a weak high. So because this is a weak high, what we need to understand is that it is a targeted high. And the reason why it's a targeted high is because above every high in the market, whichever market, whether it's stocks, options, futures, crypto, forex, whatever it is, we understand that there's liquidity above that high. And so what that represents is the fact that we have a very large liquidity pool to target. And the reason why it's a very large liquidity pool is the fact that this is an all-time high on the monthly time frame, right? So this is the monthly time frame, right? And this is the reason why we're going to be targeting this all-time high. So the anticipation is to have higher prices on this particular asset, right? Ethereum, I expect to go higher for the simple reasons of we have a weak high above us and we see bullish fair value gaps or bullish inefficiencies being re-mitigated here. And we see a partial re-mitigation over here. So we don't even see this fair value gap get fully sort of closed, right? We don't see all of this fair value gap get closed, not fully filled, should I say, right? And what does that indicate to us? What does that suggest? Well, now, what that suggests is the fact that price has a very strong bullish momentum, right? Because the fair value gap hasn't been respected. And therefore, that's another confluence to look for buys. But the main reason for higher price is the fact that we're bullish with our structure and we have a weak high on the monthly, right? So this now becomes our weak high. And we know we need to target weak highs because they're areas of liquidity, right? So weak highs are areas of liquidity. So if we now drop down to the daily time frame, monthly down to the daily, we can begin to dissect some of the most recent price action and most recent structure, right? So what we saw over here is we saw a shift in our structure from bullish, so from bearish to bullish up here. So we saw a shift in structure. We saw price break with a body just over here. So this was price breaking with a body in this region over here. Now, since then, we had price break above this high again. So we're very much in bullish territory over here. We've had two clean breaks of structure, giving us a significant indication for higher prices, right? And now since then, we've just climbed higher and higher and higher, right? So if I just quickly go back up to the monthly time frame, sorry, what we should understand is one thing which I actually missed out from the monthly analysis is the fact that we have a fair value gap, but it's a bearish fair value gap, right? we see a bearish fair value gap. We see one over here, right? This is a fair value gap. It's a it's a bearish fair value gap, right? That leaves inefficient price action. So we have two fair value gaps. One just over here. Oh, if I can get this to draw. So this is an inefficiency in price. This is one fair value gap just over here. Now, the second fair value gap is just above. So we see a fair value gap in this region over here. Considering we have that weak high above, like I discussed previously, price is likely to rip through this fair value gap and head up to this fair value gap over here, in line with the bullish momentum that the markets are currently showing, right? So, with that being said, the next price point of interest is going to be 39,150, 39,150, 39,155 on Ethereum, okay? So if we go down to the daily time frame, let's mark up this fair value gap of interest and let's go down to the daily time frame. Now on the daily time frame, we understand that we have our bullish structure. So our most recent bullish structure, if we mark that out, this is how I'm looking at current structural ranges here on Ethereum. What we see over here is we see structure giving us a low, a high, a low, sorry, a low, a high, a low, and now we've had a break of structure over here. So now we've had the last high over here get broken. What other indications are there for bullish pricing? Well, we went through them on the monthly time frame, and this is where we need to understand time frames are fractal. We see here a bunch of imbalance. This whole leg over here leaves fair value gaps. So there's a lot of fair value gaps across this entire range over here. This range here is fair value gaps, right? All of these fair value gaps need to be filled at some point, which represents bullish momentum in the markets. Now, the last thing to consider is the fact that we had a fair value gap in this region, and let's see how price behaved at that point. We see price come down, respect the fair value gap as it's done over here. So we see price filling the fair value gap, respecting it, and then heading higher, breaking structure to the upside, right? So with that being said, our overall target, like I said on the monthly, is all the way up here. This monthly fair value gap at 39,150, right? No, sorry, yeah, 39.15, sorry. So this is our next target in price, right? So there's two scenarios that Ethereum could give us. We could continue to rip higher, seeing prices come all the way up to that 39.15 level, or we could see somewhat of a healthy retracement beforehand, right? We could see a healthy retracement beforehand, coming down to some sort of a price point here before heading higher. How do we know how deep the retracement is going to be? Now, we don't know for sure. We don't know for sure. But one thing we want to understand from our tools is the fact that we have a swing low and we have our swing high. Let's just say we have a swing high in this region and we begin to see somewhat of a correction. Our correction needs to be ideally in the 50, below the 50% level in the discounted area, right? That way we can fill some buy side inefficiency, buy side fair value gaps before simply heading higher, right? So this is one particular scenario on ETHUSD if we were to see a correction. Now my advice to all traders is never ever 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 try and pick the tops of the market. So don't try and pick this top. Yeah, I'm going to label that in red. Don't try and pick this top, and do not try and pick this potential top if it were to happen, right? That's not the way to trade. You want to trade in line with the trend. The trend is your friend, of course. It's a cliche saying, but that's the realities of trading. So you want to trade these impulses here, right? You want to trade these impulses here. You want to trade these potential impulses here. That's the correct way to go about day trading and even swing trading, right? Especially swing trading. You don't want to be holding these shallow pullbacks, right? These shallow corrections. Just a pro tip there on ETHUSD. So overall narrative from LiquidFX, we're bullish on in this particular market for the reasons highlighted. We've had a break of structure, a fill of the fair value gap, and we have price with a reason to target this area, this monthly fair value gap over here, right? Monthly fair value gap at roughly 39.15. Right, so with that being said, this is the overall outlooks on Ethereum. If we were to drop down one more time frame, so the 4-hour time frame, we see that we're in a monthly fair value gap, so I'll just get rid of that to make it clean. Again, the 4-hour time frame doesn't show any real indications of a potential correction on the daily, right? So what we saw over here is we saw a change of character, a chalk in this region, right? So this is how you'd mark out a chalk. It's an internal break of structure, right? So this here is our chalk. This here is our chalk. And the chalk stands for change of character. Very simply, a change of character from here. And now that we've had our chop on the 4-hour time frame, price has shown no indication of slowing down. And the reason why we see that is because we see very shallow retracements followed by big moves up, right? Then again, what do we see over here? We see a very shallow retracement and a big move up. The big move is represented by now, yes, number one, the price fluctuations from bearish to bullish is large, but of course from ICT concepts we have a fair value gap over here which represents that buying power, right? We understand a bullish imbalance represents an imbalance between buyers and sellers. Buyers are very much in control over here, and again we have a very shallow correction followed by an impulse pullback, right? That leaves a fair value gap. So my advice to all Ethereum traders will be to look for longs up to this price point up here, up to the 39.15 level, right? So if you like this video, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and I look forward to seeing all of you in the next one.